Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2019 Kia Niro, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the CURT Trailer Hitch receiver. So out of the hitches available for the Niro, this one's going to be my favorite. And really that's because it's going to be so versatile. Since it is a Class 3, it's going to have that 2" by 2" receiver tube opening, which is a really common size. And that means you're going to be able to use just about any hitch-mounted accessory that you would want, whether it be a bike rack, a cargo carrier, or anything along those lines. And the hitch is also going to look good and kind of blend into the back of your Niro. Really the only thing you're going to be able to see is this receiver tube opening here. The hitch is going to have a reinforced collar, not only for extra strength, but I think it kind of gives us a more complete or finished look as well. It's going to have the standard 5/8 pinhole. Now keep in mind, a pin and clip does not come included, but if you need one, you can pick it up here at eTrailer. We're going to have loop style safety chain openings, which aren't huge, but they should give us enough room to use just about any size hook that we might have. Now as far as the hitch's weight capacities go, it's going to have a 525-pound maximum gross tongue weight rating. So that's going to be the amount of weight that's pushing down on the hitch. That's a pretty high number, so you shouldn't have any issues using just about any size bike rack or cargo carrier that you would want to. As far as the maximum gross trailer weight rating goes, it's going to be 3,500 pounds. So that's going to be the amount of weight that's pulling on the hitch. So that's the weight of your trailer plus anything that you might have on it. Now I do always like to recommend, it's never a bad idea to check with your Kia's owner's manual to make sure your Niro can pull that much weight. Now I'm going to give you a couple of measurements, and you're going to use these to help figure out which hitch-mounted accessories to get. From the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening, it's going to be about 12 inches. So if you do plan on doing some towing, chances are pretty good you're going to need to get a ball mount with a rise. From the center of the hitch pin hole to the edge of our rear bumper, it's going to be about 6 inches. And you're going to use that measurement to help figure out that if any folding accessories you might have can be stored in the upright position without contacting the bumper. So at the end of the day, a hitch you really can't go wrong with. Not only does it look good, but since it has that 2" by 2" opening, the amount and type of accessories you can use are going to be pretty much endless. And since it is a Class 3, if you do plan on doing some towing, you're going to be able to accomplish that as well. Now as far as the installation goes, even though the hitch is for the most part completely hidden, it's really not too bad. Straightforward and nothing too crazy involved to get it done. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and put it on together now. To begin our install, we're going to be underneath the back of our Niro, and the first thing that we're going to have to do is remove this little metal exhaust guard here on the back of our muffler. It's going to be held in place with 2 bolts on each side, and so I'll use a 12mm socket to pull those out. Once we have it off, we can set it to the side as we will not be reinstalling it. Now we are going to have to lower our exhaust a little bit. That way it'll give us some room to work. What I like to do is take a strap and just run it from side to side. That way we can kind of control how fast our exhaust comes down, and this will give it a little bit of support as well. To get our exhaust down, we're going to have a total of 3 rubber isolator hangers. We're going to have 1 just like this on each side of the muffler, and you can spray them down with some soapy water or some penetrating oil, and that makes it a little bit easier to pry off. So I'll grab a pry bar. You can use a big screwdriver. Kind of just work one end of the isolator hanger off. And I kind of just like to push it off to the side out of the way. And the third one is going to be closer towards the front of our car here in the center. So I'll use that same technique to get that one released as well. Then we can loosen up our strap and lower our exhaust a little bit. Over here on the driver's side, we are going to have to remove this little underbody panel. To do that, we're going to have 3 plastic push pin fasteners. You can just take a flathead screwdriver, kind of pry underneath the head of the fastener, and you can grab it as a whole and pop it out. We'll get all 3 of these removed. And if we kind of move up to our frame rail, we're going to have some plastic nuts. We're going to grab a 14mm socket. You can usually turn these by hand and get those off. Just grab the panel and sneak it out and set it off to the side. If we look at the bottom of our frame rail, we're going to have a rubber plug inside of there. We're going to remove that. You can just grab it and pop it out. And what we're going to do is get some of our hardware in place. We're going to take our fish wire and a spacer block. We're going to slide that spacer block onto our fish wire. We're going to take a carriage bolt and thread it onto our fish wire. We can then feed that carriage bolt up into the frame rail, as well as the spacer block. We kind of just work it and get our bolt to drop through. Now I do want to mention from this point on, anything we do to this side, we're also going to do to the other side because they're going to be set up the exact same way. On the side of our frame rail, we're going to have two factory weld nuts that we're going to be using as attachment points. Now what I suggest doing is spraying some penetrating oil in those weld nuts and using a toothbrush to clean out the threads. That way if there's any dirt or debris in there, it will be removed and make installing our hardware much easier. Now with an extra set of hands, we can grab our hitch and put it into position. I want to take our pull wire and put it through the corresponding hole in the hitch, which will be the center hole. We're going to raise it up and over our exhaust. Once we have our hitch pushed nice and flat against our frame, we can remove our pull wire. And we're going to take a hex nut and get that started hand tight. We want to make sure to get at least one started on each side, that way the hitch will support itself while we work on the rest of the hardware. The hardware that we're going to be using once we have the hitch up to secure it for both of those weld nuts, it's really simple. We're going to have a hex bolt and a conical tooth washer. We want to be sure that the teeth on the washer will be facing towards the hitch. With all of our hardware in place and hand tight, now we can go ahead and snug it all down. Now we can grab a torque wrench and tighten all of our hardware down to the amount specified in our instructions. At this point, we can go ahead and re-secure our exhaust. So I'm just going to kind of push up on the muffler and line it up with the hangers to push them back in place. Once it's secure, we can go ahead and remove our strap. Now we can grab our underbody panel and trim it out. There's a diagram and the instructions that tell you where to cut, so I went ahead and just marked that out. It is relatively thin plastic, so I'm just going to use a pair of 10 snips. But you could also use a utility knife, a Dremel tool, or just a regular pair of snips would probably work as well. So I tried to test fit our panel, and there still was a little bit of interference. So what I did was just take a couple more inches off right here on this side, and that allows it to fit really nicely. Now that our panel is cut out, we can go ahead and reinstall it the same way that we removed it, with one exception. When we put it back up in place, we're only going to be using the 3 push pin fasteners and not the plastic nuts. Now you don't have to do this, but what I did was just reinstall our bolts on each side of our muffler, because in my opinion it just gives us a more complete look. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the CURT Trailer Hitch receiver on our 2019 Kia Niro.